Saturday, September the 28th, will be a huge day of racing out at Santa Anita. It is California Crown Day, the inaugural California Crown Day, where a couple stakes races that have been on the calendar have now been bumped up with the purses at $1,750,000, and they will serve as big Breeders' Cup preps for races that will be at Del Mar in just about 5 weeks or so. Barry Spears joins me to talk about the big day on Saturday. Barry, buddy, how you doing?
Hanging in there, my man. This is a really cool thing that's going on out there in California with the California Crown because, this section of time, like in September, early October, there's really not much going on. And this is a good spot maybe to get some prep races in before the Breeders' Cup. And this falls at a good point in the season. And these are some pretty good races, too.
So I have the graphic up for the California Crown, which is the feature race. It's a grade one. It's going to go as race number 9. If you want to get some more information on California Crown, all the details, there's a website, californiacrown.com. And what's cool is this is going to be a really nice on-track experience. They're going to have live music, a bunch of performances, lots of really good food and drinks. But the key, Barry, is what we're going to be talking about, the great wagering and all of the big wagering opportunities. That's why this site is key, because there's a big special wagering menu just for this day and for Saturday and Sunday. And all of the wagers are 15% takeout, which is awesome.
Yes,
And
it's very player friendly.
so that's what's cool. Big day, going to be fun for everybody on track. But always what's key, the players are going to be taken care of. There's a bunch of opportunities. These are legitimate wagers too. We've seen some kind of wagers that are created sometimes that don't end up getting played all that much. These are great. Pick 5, pick 6, pick 4. These are doubles, and the minimums are a little bit higher. So all of these things are going to pay out really, really well, Barry.
You would think. I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see how all this stuff kind of shakes out because it's kind of new territory with
Yeah.
a big event day like this that's a non-Breeders' Cup day out in California. Then these new bets and the 15% takeout. I think it's going to be well received. But only time will tell. But I'm excited for it
And what
personally.
positive is that the entries got out a little early this week. So you and I are recording on Wednesday. People are able to look at the races a little early on, talk about them a little bit more. So a little more coverage of this throughout the week. And whatever you prefer. Are you someone who likes the doubles? Are you more of a pick 4, pick 5, pick 6 player? They have all sorts of different wagers here for you to take a look at. Check them all out. And we'll dive on in and we'll take a look at the Daily Racing Form past performances. So yeah, that website right there, californiacrown.com. And then whatever you need there. Barry, there's also that big handicapping championship, the California Crown. That thing is $6,000 to enter though, right? So that's a lot of money, for someone to put in an entry. But if you want to try to qualify on Friday, opening day, they have one of these $300. This is the graphic for Del Mar, but they have this exact same thing on Friday where you could win for $300. It's a qualifier to get in instead of paying the 6,000. So if you are someone who likes to play in tournaments, it's going to be a huge day. You're already going to be looking at the races. You know what else comes back on Saturday, Barry? That coast to coast pick 5 for the month between Santa Anita and Del Mar. There's also the pick'em contests that are back. Those free to enter pick'em contests. Those are back and rolling. So, and there is so much action, so much happening this weekend over at Santa Anita, in particular on Saturday. We're going to look at the DRF past performances right now, shop.drf.com. Barry and I will take a look at that all stakes pick 5. So that will be races 5 and then 7, 8, 9, 10. Really good races, some quality and some quantity with some big fields. And then I think the California Crown, it's only a field of 7, but 5 of them are grade 1, group 1 winners.
Yeah, I mean, these are really interesting races, all of them. Very competitive, a lot of evenly matched races, and I think it's going to be a good thing and a success.
So let's take a look at race number 5. Let's get things started. This one, we'll be going down the hill, Barry. This is the Unzip Me. And as you and I are looking at these on Wednesday, we don't have the morning lines out. We'll talk about the horses we like. We have an idea of which horses in each race are going to take money. It's harder to mention specific odds and stuff like that, but we can, give an idea of who we're using and who we're trying to beat. So from a conversation standpoint, down the hill, 6.5 furlongs. Dreamfire from the inside is quick, but has not raced since November of last year. But a horse you think will be forwardly placed, kind of going through the field. There's not that much early speed. Towards the outside, you expect to see a horse like Tupi, who's been kind of coming out of 5.5 furlong races to be forward, to be close up. You'll probably see horses like Golden Canary, who's been versatile, maybe from out wide, want to show a little bit more of that positional speed. Omaha Girls one, cutting back, but not a ton of horses that are need the lead type. So should be kind of an honest, maybe a fair pace in here with this group. Barry, talk about some of the horses who you like, who you'd want to use in the pick 5.
I think the pace actually might actually get quick up front. I don't think they're going to let that horse kind of get away, because they know this horse has been off a layoff for a long time and getting pressured and just being too keyed up. I think that people would take their chances going head and head with that horse, thinking that that horse is probably going to be short going that fast this early. That being said, a few horses caught my eye. I know I'm not really sure, at least as far as favoritism would go. I was thinking a horse like Zona Verde might
I think so.
end up
Yeah,
being the favorite,
I'd agree.
just off her, her class and everything.
She's super honest, but the thing is too, like, she is very deserving of that role in this field because her resume is the best.
Mm-hmm.
But the counter would be, she's just not a win machine.
Exactly, and that's what I was, likes to finish second and third a lot.
Super honest, no knocks overall. But she's the type of horse who you like playing punching up versus being a favorite. Because, you know what? She's in the mix. She might be able to get lucky with the right kind of trip and win a race when she's not that far behind, horses like I Scream, You Scream in Maduro, in the last 2 races, for example. Those are nice times to try to take a shot and play her. She's 9-1. She's 11-1. Right. These are the races when she's a little bit shorter where, she's just not been a horse.
You got to really tread lightly.
Because you just don't want to take too short.
Right. I mean, she's definitely capable of winning a race like this, but she hasn't really shown the propensity to want to pass horses late in the game and finish second a lot. And that brings me to, there's 2 horses that I like towards the outside. Tupi is one of them. I actually thought this one might end up going off favored also.
It wouldn't shock me. Yeah.
But this horse really fits the build. It's very, very versatile. Could be real close to the pace, no matter whether it's fast or slow. That's probably a good spot to be in. And the other one is Golden Canary right inside of that one. I just think this horse is actually on the rise. I think they made a couple of errors, or not mistakes or errors, but just kind of misplaced this horse a little bit in that run where she got like lost and went down the Gulfstream and didn't do anything.
Yeah, if you just eliminate those 2 races.
Yeah.
Her form really makes sense.
Really, really well here. And
look who she lost to in the Natalma. She's behind She Feels Pretty and Simply in front. Really nice horses. We talked about her a lot last year when we were covering these races at Woodbine. I was covering them every day, and she beat the boys in the Soar Free in her second start. She lost to another nice horse named Erosa in her debut, and then another good one named Dancing Duchess in the Algonquin. All those races at Woodbine were good. Just went down to Gulfstream, and it wasn't even like she was overmatched, right? I don't think that was the case or anything.
No,
it just was like
run.
She just didn't fire.
Something
Period.
Happened. That's what you got to assume.
Exactly. Just eliminate those and come right back. And what's nice for her, drawn to the outside in here, we know she can sit close, but she doesn't have to. She just showed us last time. She has to sit back, shuffle back a little bit. She's fine doing so, and she'll make the 3rd start of the form cycle right now. I'm using her for sure in pick 5s.
Yeah, I think Golden Canary definitely deserves a long look in this spot, because you're going to have Tupi and Zona Verde that probably are going to vie for favoritism in this race. And then you have a horse like Antifona, who was a dead closer. I mean, there's versions of this race where it does get hot up
Yep.
front and sets up for a horse like that. I'm not really sure. It's hard to trust at any even when the pace kind of sets up for horses like this to come off the pace, especially down the hill. That's a tough task.
She's done it one, it's like if she's one of those horses where if she's really forgotten about and really floats up, then I could absolutely use her because there is a race in there, as you were pointing out, where she's shown. I mean, she beat Zona Verde and Alluring in the Sweet Life. Those are horses that are going to be a lot like Zona Verde is going to be a top tier contender in here. But after that, if you just take that one race out, there's a lot of the other races where she's being defeated by these same rivals.
Right.
It's like everything came together that one day, but that was down the hill. So that keep in mind, that's, a positive that swings back her way. She's just one that I think you want to demand a little bit of price with. The one I want to mention is the 2, Andiamo Ragazza, because she just had no shot last time out.
Oh yeah, no, not
she
at
had
all.
A brutal trip in that race, and she was actually facing older. And in the race, she lost to a horse that went gate to wire. There was no passing. So she's inside, she's 8th, she's kind of five lengths off or so. She's moving up nicely, but she just got no room down on the inside. She moves into a tight spot and then to the 2 path, but a rival to her outside move, so she couldn't get out. She's just begging for room. And then by the time she got a little bit, she was flat, and that was going longer. Now she gets to cut back to a sprint. And while she came from out of it and won, she's also sat a lot closer before. I think she's just pretty versatile. And if we eliminate this dirt race where she lost to Pushiness and Grand Slam style, she had a bad start. And the way that race shaped up, she just had no chance. It was just another race where there wasn't a whole lot of passing. She has that, those 2 excuses. The other 3 races are good, in particular the 2 turf sprints.
Yeah, I mean, I think she merits a really, really good good spot here, and probably will get overlooked because
I think so too.
Her speed figures are not
they're
the
not
heftiest, but she has that potential to jump up.
Out. Exactly, right? So it's kind of perfect what you're looking for. If you're looking for a price, she might be one of them, because just like you said, she doesn't have those overwhelming speed figures, but she's lightly raced enough. And if you're eliminating her last race and playing her to jump up a little bit off that 77, and then she's right into like the low 80s, well, that's
right there.
That's right there.
Yep.
And she's a very fair price. Rispoli jumps aboard too. So he has just a really good sense for the grass racing out, when to move, when to make the move. He's coming off another nice meet at Del Mar. It's a fun way to start this all stakes pick 5. A lot of different ways you can go. I think we hit on, a good amount of major players in here. I'm glad we talked about Tupi. I've always been a fan of Alluring. She hasn't quite stepped up a little bit. There were 1 or 2 races where she had trouble, and I played her back off of them. But maybe she's a horse who gets forgotten about. But and the outside draw doesn't hurt you as much down the hill, with the complexion.
It's really neutral,
which could be helpful for Tupi. I guess my only concern for Tupi, who you're pointing out, was sometimes this 6.5 is a lot different than the 5.5 she's been dealing with.
Yep.
Is she get a little short late, and maybe is she more of like a 5.5 or 5er versus a 6er? And you know what? That won't mind if she's the type of horse who they want to go to run in a race at Del Mar with in either the Breeders' Cup, or if there's something that weekend that's 5 furlongs in that range. But down the hill, maybe it's a little too much for her. She's certainly talented and been facing really good company.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, you see in the running lines, No Name Mets, Buchu, Twirling Queen. I mean, these are horses that have been formidable since they've been on the track. So I think that one, I just worry about that one being overbet.
Yeah,
in this
I would agree.
spot.
Especially you get Pratt jumping aboard. So that is race number 5 on Saturday. That is going to kick off an all stakes pick 5, 15% takeout. It's $1. That'll probably be one of the bigger pools that all stakes pick 5 sequence. It skips race number 6. That's a maiden special weight race. Actually a solid race, not a bad betting race. If you want to play the late pick 5 there, go ahead. But we'll talk about the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, which are all graded stakes races. And the 7th race is one of these races that got the purse boosted. It's the Grade 2 John Henry Turf Championship. This purse is now up to $750,000. And to talk about some of the major players in here, horses who will get a lot of money, I think you got to go to Gold Phoenix, who just won the Del Mar Handicap for the 3rd time. And he ran a pretty good race in the Breeders' Cup Turf last year. He was 50-1. He finished 4th. He was only beaten 2+ lengths behind August Rodin up to the mark, Shayar. So he ran really well against Top Company. And then this year, he's run well in 2 of his last 3, and the one that he didn't, he had legitimate trouble that day. He's the horse to beat. Balnikov, who has been right there with him in the last couple, he's another one that will come running late. I figure those 2 will probably be 2 of the shorter prices in here, Barry, but and they absolutely merit tons of respect, great resumes, but with their running styles, they are horses that do come from way out of it. So sometimes they can get stuck in traffic. They're beatable on the win end because of their running style. Class-wise, they're probably a little bit of a tier above a lot of the others in here, but I think that's what makes the race a little playable, is that you have these horses who will probably be pretty short prices, and they don't really make their own trips.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough because it's like, where's the speed going to come from?
Yeah.
You look at this on paper, and I'm sure people are going to say Dicey Mochara, but I don't really think that horse wants to lead.
That was kind of by default last time
right,
out, right?
And he did it before, like a while ago, back in April 2023, went to the lead and kind of finished 2nd in the same sort of deal. I don't think that's really what they want to do here.
I think he wants a target. I agree with you.
I would gather 7 Wonders or possibly Dive and Propose.
Yep. So I'm just listening to what Frankie was saying, and Frankie went Devon Propos.
There you go.
So that's
Devon
what
Propos, I guess
that's
it's
what
French.
Yeah.
Like, like where he was born. So
that's what Frankie was saying. I kind of like this horse, Barry.
I think this horse has a really, really big shot in this race.
Yep.
Not only because of the pace scenario, where I think you're going to really need to be forwardly placed to win this race. This horse has the versatility to be where he wants. And I think this one falls into the best trip.
Totally
and that's
agree.
why I'm just worried about what the morning line will be on this horse, because at least on paper, I could see this horse being 2nd choice.
Well, I think that what's
all the way up
nice
to like
that,
4th choice, because
yeah,
there's other horses in here.
The positive is that I feel like the D'Amato horses, the 2, Balnikov and Gold Phoenix, will be shorter than him. Probably another tier even of, like, I could see Masterpiece and Dicey Mo also being like the next tier, and then maybe this horse. And if that's the way it goes, I think he's playable. I really do. He's never run a bad race, and his entire career in France before coming over to the U.S., he hit the board in every single start. Then he comes to the U.S. His first start was at Santa Anita. We talked about that race on June the 15th that he was in. He was coming off a long layoff, but it wasn't the strongest group in the world, but he was still going 1.25 miles, and he hadn't run since September of 2014 or September of 2023. Wild. So he hadn't run in 8 months, and
it was an
awesome race. Then on July 21st, the only time he doesn't hit the board in his entire career, he's 5th, but he's only beaten 3/4 of a length that day. So while he doesn't hit the board for the first time ever, watch how wide he is hooked the whole race. He got money this day because he was so impressive coming off that debut. And so he's the 6th in here in the race that we're watching right here, which was July 21st. He gets caught 3 deep and just is like not able to ever get settled inside of there. You see, he's towards the back, 3 wide. and he really doesn't know what quite to do because he can't really tuck in anywhere.
Right. I think the horse was trying to get covered up.
He wanted to get inside of the
Yeah,
9,
he
but
definitely did.
he couldn't really do that. Like if you're looking at his angle, he would have cut the 4 completely off. So he just has to settle there 3 deep towards the back. And, we can go forward a little bit, but it's all the way through 3 wide. 3 wide. And now here he has to move 5 wide. So like at this point, if you're looking at the horse with the green, the light green in the, the silks, you're looking at the horse, you're thinking he's done. I'm thinking he's wide, he's done. This horse just keeps trying too. When he doesn't have any business right here to keep on trying, he's like green.
He was coming.
He's tired, but he's like shifting around a little bit, but he's still trying really hard because he finally gets some clearance here. And I thought this was a really good effort from a horse who's just widest of all, giving up all the ground. And then he comes back following that, gets a great trip, puts himself in a really nice spot, and he wins. And he beats a horse named Awfully Naughty. And Awfully Naughty has tailed off a little bit, right?
Really nice.
There was a point who in early to middle 2023, he was the top distance marathon turf horse out here. He won the Whittingham and the San Luis Rey back to back, and then he was second in the San Juan Capistrano, and then Planetario came over, and he was running pretty well at those longer distances. We see he faced Gold Phoenix in the running lines a few times. Why I pointed that out was because Devon Propo was able to defeat Awfully Naughty, who, yes, has tailed off a little bit. But when you go down to the running lines of the horse who's going to be most likely the favorite in here, Gold Phoenix, you see at the bottom of the page, at the bottom of your your DRF past performances, if you were looking there, that horse beat Gold Phoenix down here in the Whittingham, in 2023. So again, if you're looking at a horse like this and you're wondering, maybe his speed figures are a little light compared. He hasn't really faced graded stakes company yet. No, well, he beat a horse that beat your likely favorite. So if the speed figures are a little light, and I know that this horse has competed with other strong company, doesn't bother me at all. And maybe it'll just give us a little more value on him.
Let's hope.
Yeah, I like him.
You're a lot more optimistic than I am. I think he's going to get bet.
Yeah, I mean, he himself has gotten bet in all of his starts.
He's
my only hope,
time, right?
Yeah, all 3 of them. My only hope is just that his speed figures aren't as
flashy,
high as some of the others. So I feel like we'll get at least 3, maybe 4 horses shorter than him, and that makes him super playable.
Yes, it does. If that's the case, absolutely.
Yep. So we'll see. That's what's great about doing these with the morning line. Sometimes you're dead on, and other times they make you look like a fool, like an absolute idiot. Who is a horse that's a long shot? I don't think he can win, but if you're playing some, exactas tries and stuff, if you look at 7 Wonders, who's been a real trip horse too. So he's a horse that I've played a few different times because he's gotten himself in trouble. If you look at his running lines too, he's off slow, he's gotten stuck. But what's interesting, when you really look at the races going longer, there have been 4 of them. I think he has 3 at 1 1/8 and 1 going 1 1/4. All of those races, he's run really well because he's able to just show more positional speed in those races. They're going slower early, so he can sit up closer. He doesn't have as much trouble to deal with, and he's a nice horse. He crossed the wire first last time, and he was DQ'd, and it was one of those tough DQs where, he did probably impede a horse behind him when he was in some traffic. He was kind of shifting around, but he was no doubt the best horse. He was always going to win that race, and he won really easily. It was just, a foul is a foul, and he probably did, by the letter of the law, impact the other horse. So he got DQ'd and placed 6th. But if you look at that race, the other 2 mile and 3 ace races where he was not bad there with Balladeer and 911 Turbo, and then the 1 1/4 race where he's second, he is a horse who, to me, looks maybe like they've just wanted to go a little bit longer and deserve a couple more opportunities at some of these longer trips. So at least a price horse to mention it's another competitive race. This is a good, fun race. You have a lot of the top horses out here on the West Coast. And as we said, when you have horses who are deserving favorites, but their running style is more of a late runner, then they're a little more beatable because there's a lot more variables that can happen. I played There Goes Harvard in the Pacific Classic last time, and he honestly didn't run
He didn't
all
run
that
bad.
poorly.
Nah.
Because I was just looking for a new face once Adair Manor got scratched out of there, and I think she just retired today. Also, then it was pretty wide open, and he has some big races in there in both turf and dirt. It's just I've played him a few times in a row now. I just got to see a little bit more of a competitive race from him. Just a little more.
He's
but
on the verge. On
yeah,
the verge.
I'm not completely throwing him out in race number 7, as I'm gonna lean towards where Barry and I were talking mostly Devon Prabhu, if we can get the right I probably said it 3 or 4 ways and 3 or 4 different ways every time I said the name. I did my
You said
best.
it like,
I did
you
my
said it
best.
like Remy. You
Yeah.
said it like
Yeah. I did my best as we move along to race number 8. This one is the grade 2 Eddie D. Just celebrated a birthday recently, I believe.
Yes, 74, right? Or 75?
I know all the Eddie D stuff because my mom, huge Eddie D fan. And
Nice.
when I was young, my mom would always like set up pictures with me and Eddie D. I've got like 4 or 5 of them around
Oh,
when I'm a
that's
kid
dope.
with Eddie D, which are pretty cool to look back on now. And then I've got a couple actually as I've gotten a little bit older. Actually, I think there was a day when I was covering one of the Delta jackpots at Delta Downs. He was out there, got to hang out a little bit and talk about Louisiana racing and stuff. Yeah, awesome. Going through a lot of the people you cross paths with through the years. Let's get to race number 8, the grade 2 Eddie D. And this is another one of those boosted purses, $750,000. We're going to go 6.5 furlongs down the hill. Barry, my friend, just to talk about some of the horses that will, take a lot of money. First Piece was actually favored in the Del Mar Mile. He actually got parked a little bit wide in a race that concluded just one gate to wire. Got to give a shout out to Doug O'Neill. He's done a really great job with Two Rivers Over. He's been more of a dirt horse, but just got to give him a little bit of credit because claimed this horse for 30. They've won some big races with him. King of Gosford has been a good local sprinter, particular down the hill. His figures aren't quite as high as some of the others, but he's really good. And you watch his races, he's got a little bit more in the tank down the hill than they probably needed to ask him. I mean, Air Force Red is a very good down the hill horse. With his running style, it kind of perfect for him because he has good speed. He doesn't really want to come from off the pace, but he can kind of fall into it if he's up there battling, and that's perfect for the downhill. That's why he's won a few times down here, and some of his better races have come here. And then with the big money up for grabs, you get horses that are shipping in, like Eamon, who comes in trying to get a big piece and maybe get set up for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Step Forward also doing the same, last raced over at Kentucky Downs. And then to the outside, you have Big Invasion, who was the runner-up in last year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. But when we were kind of talking about horses that are more like 5.5 horses versus 6.5, I'm not sure if he's as much of a 6.5er. He does have a win at 7 earlier in his career, and I think he can get it okay. I think he just probably is a little bit best at like 5.5.
Yeah, I think he's the kind of horse you have to time it right.
Yep, exactly. And he's got the right guy aboard with Pratt.
Yeah, and Pratt, it's going to be tough from way outside like that. I'm not sure what kind of trip he's actually going to get. I mean, that's tough, but it's just fitting that the Eddie D is this race. I'm gravitating towards a bunch of closers. I just think there's a lot of pace in here. And you mentioned Two Rivers Over, and I think this horse has a really good shot here. I know his races at Indiana Grand and the fairgrounds and even his Del Mar turf race weren't all that spectacular by any means, but I think this horse has some ability and has since that Del Mar,
He's
his
just
last
better
turf race,
now.
he's just better now. Yeah, exactly. You nailed it right on the head. This horse is just better, and showing that kind of class, shipping over to Maidan, you kind of have to give this horse a look in a race like this because, not that these aren't good horses, but they're not the top of the top. You
And
know, Big
that same
Invasion may have been before, but not now. I mean, he's a 5-year-old, and he's
because
kind of
he had tailed off this year. That
definitely
last effort was a real bounce back performance for him.
he needed that for
Because
sure.
the disappointing race was July 4th one when he kind of dropped into a softer spot.
Should have won that race.
And he couldn't get the job done there. He got the jump too. I think Outlaw Kid just was better that day.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we can look at his races and say, yeah, he dealt with Cogburn in some of those races. So I'm okay with him getting beat those days. But this is a horse who was the runner-up in the turf sprint last year. You expect him to be more competitive in races like that, not dead last, not just kind of nowhere races. So it was nice to see him bounce back a little bit more. I mean, he had trouble in the race at Saratoga.
So I think a lot of his issue is he kind of gets lost in races. Like,
too far back.
And then he starts running, and when he runs, he gets really in the gear and he goes. But I mean, he's just been falling short. So you can't really trust a horse like that in here. I would definitely demand a price, and I don't think you're going to get it because his 2 most recent races have been a lot better. So I'm gathering the ship out east is going to attract a lot of attention. People are going to bet him. And
I think so too.
I particularly don't appreciate him in this spot. He'd be hard to leave off like this pick 5 ticket because he is one of the likeliest of winners in this race. But
he's not a win wager. He's probably undervalued. Like,
exactly.
He's not a single horse. He's not a shorten up and build around horse. And if you, like you said, he's scary to leave out. If you're gonna if you want to toss him because he's a short price, like I'm okay with it.
I would do that.
It's he. You know, once he starts to wind up, he could be absolutely mowing him down late. With
and it wouldn't surprise anybody, you know.
But the combination of the short price, maybe him not quite being as good as he was before, and the running style, kind of you put them all together, he's just a little undervalued.
Yeah, and I think so too. But you know, tread carefully, especially because of the price. I mean, it's tough to get that without the morning line, but we'll see. A horse I do like quite a bit is Amon, who you referred to earlier. This horse I've been watching this horse for quite a bit, and this is the best distance for this horse, and you can't really get the 6.5s out east unless you're at Belmont for really.
He's a horse who is really interesting at down the hill for exactly what you're saying. It's just like, this feels like this is going to fit him really well. He just hasn't had many opportunities to go distances like this. Look at his races going 7.5. Right. They win, and he can win at 5.5, but it's a little too short for him.
Right. Because
5 and 5s and
motor.
Like 5s and 5.5 are a tad too short for him. And he faced nice horses. He's faced Cogburn, Grooms All Business. Dream Shake got in really good form. Arzak was very good at that time too when he was facing him. Coppola got sharp and won a few races in a row. He just doesn't win all that much because of his running style.
That the turf sprint on Derby Day, that's been basically what I've been using as the bar for the best race this year.
Sure.
As a sprint. So anybody coming out of that race, I'm automatically upgrading.
Yep. Filio Dariana, people forget. That's a really nice horse who went up to Woodbine.
Really good horse.
Won a grade 6 and then just missed in the Woodbine Mile.
So you kind of work from that point going forward. And I think this horse was just in some really tough spots and didn't get the distance. I think this horse is a 6 and better horse, probably 6.5 to longer.
Yep.
And the last race in particular sets this up perfectly.
But toss it.
This horse tried to go and just didn't have anything. And then on the undulations and everything at Kentucky Downs, it serves as a perfect prep for this race because the buyer number's down. Everybody's looking at the last race.
Yep.
What have you done for me lately? Not much. We're going to look elsewhere. Amon gets overlooked and hopefully wins.
I think Amon's a must use. I think it's a really good spot for Amon to come down the hill. Others to mention. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned like horses that make sense, like King of Gosford. The key for him really is that the trip, because he was taken back more, and it looks like I think he has more speed. He wants to sit. Like, he really does want to target. So I think he'll be more off the pace. His early fractions aren't all that fast, but he's a nice horse. So if he
Yeah, he's
stays
going
in
to be
this
right around at the end of
striking
this
range,
race.
he's not too far out of it. I've been a fan of Air Force Red. Like we said, can he kind of sit off a little bit? But you know, there's a lot of speed. There's definitely a lot of speed. And the same, him and First Piece are kind of looking for the same trip.
Right.
Maybe not too far off of it. Capable of big races, but probably a lot of company for them up front. But they do fit at the level wise. Yeah, he's going to be kind of flying.
Step forward.
Yeah,
Another one that probably would
wants to
like
be
to be on
close.
the engine.
They
Noble
all no.
Reflection.
He has no choice. He has to go.
Whew,
Yeah, he
man,
has to go. So they'll be
some
trying to hook up
fireworks.
early on down the hill. Race number 8, the Eddie D. Maybe they'll be flying late like Eddie D was so good, timing it from the back of the pack and getting right on the wire. Let's move to the Grade 1 California Crown. So it's just a field of 7. I think it's a really interesting race, though, and it's the dynamics of the race. Newgate is a Grade 1 winner, and he's one of 3 Bafferts. All 3 of the Bafferts are Grade 1 winners that are in here, but he hasn't raced since the Dubai World Cup. We can eliminate that race. He won the big cap here before, and he beat some Sanador. We actually saw him finish in front of National Treasure previously.
Yes.
So class-wise, he's not really that far out of it. The thing that's kind of interesting about him, he actually dusted Prince of Monaco in a workout in the morning too. It's like really, really good doing so. So he does feel like he's ready. Subsanador is a Group 1 winner before coming over to the U.S., Group 1 winner in Argentina, and then won the Grade 3 Islin and almost won the big cap and really seems to fit well in here. You have the Preakness winner, National Treasure, who also won the Pegasus World Cup this year. He won the Met Mile. And we could very easily say he doesn't like an off track. He's not run as well any of the times he's been on a muddy or off sloppy track. So probably an easy toss for him. For the Whitney, the counter would be he's not been his best at he can get a mile and an eighth. He won the Preakness going a little farther than this, but his best distance is about a mile.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he's just got the most finish, the most late punch. He can use a fast cruising speed, but still have some finish. So I don't know if he's perfect in this spot. Katana maybe a little up against it, but the third Baffert is Muth, who's a Grade 1 winner. But Muth has had a couple interruptions this year. We've only seen him run in January, then March, then September. He was supposed to run in the Preakness and didn't. He was supposed to run in the Pacific Classic. They went in a much easier spot in the Shared Belief, and now he'll have to step up and face older for the first time. And with the Baffert runners, it's you just sort of don't know which one is going to do what. Like Muth could go to the lead, but it's probably more National Treasure, I'd say, and maybe Muth sitting off a little bit. And then the big closer, Senor Buscador, he'll come flying. He's a Grade 1 winner. Look at the races he's been in since last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. The Cigar, even the Pacific Classic last year, awesome again. Breeders' Cup Classic, the Cigar Mile, the Pegasus World Cup, the Saudi Cup, the Dubai World Cup, and then he got a nice prep race going 7 furlongs to stretch him back out. So I do think it's kind of interesting. Indispensable and Katana, they seem a cut below. Like they would need to improve and step up to compete with the other 5. But the other 5 horses in here are pretty formidable.
Yeah, this is a good race, but it's to me, it just screams like Muth is just going to run off the screen here. This horse has never run a bad race. First of all, knocked heads with everybody. I mean, Fierceness kind of dusted him a little bit, and he still ran very, very well that day in the juvenile. His only problem is himself, is being on the track. And I think putting 2 races like this together is a real positive sign. And it just projects to me like Muth is the goods and will show it. I also want to give another look to Newgate, just because his running style fits here, and being on the rail is probably the best place for him. Coming off the long layoff like this. But geez, those 2 kind of, to me, just kind of jump off the page as the horses to beat. Beyond that,
I've never really been. I think in talking with you in a lot of these races, like we've never really been that big of national treasure guys. It's like I
no,
respect
but
him.
but he wins. It's like
And you know, and to give him credit too, this is what's really cool about seeing horses stay in training from 3 to 4 because he's gotten better this year.
yeah,
He's gotten
absolutely, he's
faster.
getting better.
He's won. Like last year, he was definitely a cut below. He won the Preakness, and it was not a strong renewal of the Preakness. And then the races after that, in the Belmont, the Travers, he was in this exact race last year when it was the Awesome again, and he finished behind Senor Buscador when he was 4th, like a non-threatening kind of 4th. But you know, it was a little bit of an off track that day, and you know, mile and an eighth, maybe a little more than he wanted.
Yeah,
he
then
got
he gives Cody's
you know,
wish all he can handle.
in the dirt mile. He cuts
Yeah.
back, and that was a monster race. And he
Man.
starts the year in the Pegasus, and he held off Senor Buscador. He ran well, and he kind of sat. That's almost as much as he sat off the pace, just about a length off. In Saudi Cup, the mile and an eighth, the long stretch, a little too far from him. And then in the Met, good race. That was White Barrio just didn't fire. You know, it's like a matchup between the two of them. And so it made the race a little easier too, because there wasn't all that much speed and he kind of just jogged. So I just never been that huge of a fan of his, but he's proved me wrong plenty of times. Plenty of times.
That's
and
tough,
respectable. Man. The horse who I like a little bit in here is Subsanador. It's kind of knowing overall what's happened with this guy. So he came into the Saddler barn, and he was favored on opening day at Santa Anita last year on the day after Christmas in the big cap against some of the older horses that weren't really proven. There was no real like headliner. So Subsanador got a ton of money, but going into that race, he was really short. He just wasn't ready. He'd been off for a little while, and it was sort of like let's get a race under him. That'll help his fitness quite a bit. They didn't really know exactly what to expect. He kind of ran like spotty and green. He didn't run all that bad. It just sort of looked like a horse who just needed more. And they gave him a little more time in the U.S. a couple months, showed back up in the big cap, and almost stole it at 22-1, almost beating Newgate. And then he switches barns, and he goes into the Mandela barn. And he goes in the Gold Cup, and he was on the lead a little bit that day. It was okay, finishes 4th. In the Island at Monmouth, he went across country. It was like a weird spot. Like, why? I wonder why he's here and not staying and running in like the Pacific Classic or something like that. But it must have been timing, whatever it was. It went over, and it worked out really well. And to me, it kind of looks like this horse, maybe he just needed some time. He's been in the U.S. now for almost a year. I mean, as far as racing, it's going to be coming up on a year. Mandela's had him now for a few races, and it really was cool to see him sit off the pace. They pressed the button. He made an early move, and then he sort of looked like Il Miracolo was coming back. But when you watch the race again, it wasn't really close at all. He held him off. I just think he's kind of adaptable. I think he's sort of heading in the right direction right now. I feel like Mandela's figured him out. I do agree with you about the Baffert. I preferred those two of the Bafferts that you mentioned as horses to use. I kind of think Subsanador is a horse that they've been real patient with. They've kind of figured out 2 different barns, good horsemen, and now Mandela will have him for his 3rd Mandela start and his 2nd start back off the bench. I'm going to include him in here. But I love Senor Buscador as a horse. He's really cool. I mean, that Pegasus World Cup day is one that I will still always remember. I mean, but he's as a fan of racing, I love seeing a horse that you kind of know what you're going to get from him. He showed up and run in a lot of the big races. They've never been afraid of facing top company. These smaller fields, though, especially where you have 3 Baffert horses that'll probably dictate the pace, maybe 2 of them, I just don't know if it's going to set up for him.
Yeah, I don't know how it's not going to be super fast. So, I mean, he closes into slower paces, but man, that's going to be tough to do.
Can he pass all of them here who are just going to get way better trips than him on probably a speed favoring track? We'll see. We don't know. We haven't seen any races at Santa Anita yet, but for the most part, it is always a
chances are.
Yeah, it always pays, better to horses that have a little more speed. So, yeah, I think it doesn't have 11 and 10 in big fields like a couple of the others do, but 5 horses are going to take money in this race.
Oh, yeah.
and they're all grade 1 winners. They're all respectable. Katana and I think Indispensable were also possibly going to run other places. Indispensable was entered at Remington, but they prefer not to ship, but it is a tough spot. And I think Katana was also possible running somewhere else, but both of them would need to step up a little bit. 5 others that are grade or group 1 winners, and a quality field in the California Crown. $1 million up for grabs. Let's finish this pick 5 sequence off, Barry, with race number 10. Oh, I got to give a little love. The
shout out.
City of Hope Mile. It's a place that saved my life. City of Hope. Thank you to the City of Hope. When I had cancer, I was 22 and it was not going well for me at all. I was very lucky because a girl that I went to school with, her mom was had a very high position over at the City of Hope, and she knew me. She knew what was happening. She told her mom. Her mom called me up and said, I just wanted to let you know that I know you've been looking for a space, and when you called, we didn't have any, but I helped out, and I know your stuff is rapidly increasing. So she got me in there to City of Hope. They got me a room, got me a bed, most likely saved my life, because where I was, the cancer that I had was very, very rapidly growing. They did a surgery on me. They cut out a huge mass, and within 2 weeks, it had completely grown back, like baseball sized, bigger than a golf ball, like up to a baseball coming out of my neck. Could not even keep it straight. So we were calling, we were trying City of Hope, and then we were going to start having to look for other places, maybe even out of the state. It was like one of those things where, just very lucky. She said she remembers you from LaSalle. You were always nice to her, and we're going to help you. So,
that's why it pays not to be a jerk, man.
I know. And you don't have to be for no reason. You just never, like, and I was like, man, I wasn't always like, older sometimes, and you're younger, you're the older guy with the younger girls. You can use that dynamic sometimes, right? Like the power. And it's like, man, that worked. Like I'm so glad that everything worked out, and shout out to them. Shout out to the City of Hope.
Everybody's glad. We're glad. I'm glad.
Shout out to Simon Bray. He's someone who went through the City of Hope.
Yes,
I know he does some stuff for them too. Like I think he'll do promotional stuff for them. So yeah, I see it. I have to mention the City of Hope, the place over in Duarte that I spent. They told me the first time, you'll be just a couple days in and out. Things can go wrong, but you'll probably be in for about 5 days. Everything the first time that could go wrong did. Something like the first chemo they didn't go right. And it was more like I got sick, I got infection, something happened like on my end, and then I was in there for like a month. That first time, thought it was over, didn't think I was going to make it. Every time after that, the next few times, boom, in and out in just 5 days, like they said. And yeah, so I'm right here talking because of the City of Hope, and that is the title sponsor of the final race on Saturday at Santa Anita, the Grade 2 City of Hope Mile Stakes. In this one, we have a really nice 4-year-old horse named Johannes, who he has won 6 of his 7 turf races. His only defeat on turf was when he traveled over to the American turf at Churchill back in 2023. He faced a good group too, with Web Slinger and Far Bridge and Major Dude. He had legitimate trouble that day.
Didn't get a chance to run, really.
And then following that, he had a long layoff. So not only did he have trouble in the race, we know something went wrong afterwards because he's off for all that time. Shows back up in April, and this year, as a 4-year-old, he's been bigger and badder. Just awesome, so just from a talking standpoint and from definitely the horse to beat. And looking at his last just 3 races, Barry, the versatility is what's nice for him.
Yeah,
he can sit mid-pack. He can sit 5-6 lengths off. He can stalk if it's slower pace and he has to be right up on it. And yeah, he's just a really nice horse.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a handful in this race. I don't see too many horses that have his style, versatility, and then
class.
late punch.
Yeah.
He's going to be real tough in this spot. I mean, the usual suspects du jour kind of looks formidable here, especially if drawing the rail is probably a good thing for that horse. And then Astronomer,
Should be close.
Looks okay too. As long as I don't think the pace is going to be too quick, but it's going to be honest.
Because I think one of the key horses is Paxawallop.
Yes,
he's in here, and if he can at least make life difficult for Conclude to the outside, Conclude won the Delmar Mile last time out. Those two set it up a little bit. And Johannes, we said the versatility is really what makes Johannes so tough. I'm probably going to include Almendares in some, just because of that prospect, and because I was really impressed with how Almendares almost ran Conclude down last time out.
Yes,
in a race where there wasn't as much speed at all. And Conclude was able to just get loose on the front end. So if we do get Paxawallop, and even more than Paxawallop, you have Johannes and Tricari, who are these really kind of classy pressers. They can sit up close and just make you work a little bit harder, make you go a little bit faster. So I'm probably a little cold on Conclude because I actually liked him in his last spot. I thought it was a really good spot for him. There wasn't that much speed. They rode him aggressively after he kind of couldn't get to the front end in back-to-back starts. So I think they're going to try to go again from outside, but I do think this will be a lot more difficult for him with at least Johannes and Tricari and maybe a horse like Paxawallop to make it like more speed up front for him to deal with.
Yeah, strategy-wise, that would make the most sense. Unless Trickery wants to get involved early, which I don't think they really would want to do, but there may be that situation where they have to just to get positioning.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to really get behind Astronomer, I wouldn't think, or behind too many horses. I mean, Trickery doesn't show a whole lot of passing in his running lines. Not saying he can't do it, but I haven't seen it yet.
He's a really nice horse too.
Yeah.
And he's stepped up, and he'll need to keep stepping up a little bit to compete with this group, but he's only 3 and he's really lightly raced. Look at his overall turf form. That debut race, Eliminate, just didn't fire, comes back after a couple months. Everything else has been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He's lost by a neck and a neck since then. You cannot run or have better form overall, but this is stepping up, facing older. This is a tough group that he's going to be dealing with here. So this will be a nice test for them to see exactly where he is at this point, how far along. A strange horse in this race. I want to mention him, but I can't get as good of a read for Easter. He might have been beating up and gotten really good at a time when he just didn't have to face as tough of company.
That's what my assessment was. I think he was just, kind of the hot horse at the right time. But he really needs a setup.
And when he ran into De Jour and Johannes and a little bit better, he's been a bit overmatched.
Yeah.
So he does have a high ceiling. He's capable of a really nice race, but like the Shoemaker was a strong field. Johannes won. Fantastic Again was in there. De Jour was in there. A lot of good horses in that field. You pull up the chart, you see some italics, horses that come back to win. There goes Harvard, who we just saw. And then Goliad was last, and Conclude were also in there. So it was a nice field. I go back and forth. This was one that I had a tough read on. I'm probably a little colder on. I need to see a more competitive effort, I think.
Yeah, he has the talent and he can win races like this. It's just a matter of where are you going to put him? He's going to be trailing, but it's just got to unfold. This horse
really,
can run. It's just, and
you
honestly,
need a price.
He's going to get overlooked.
I think so too.
Going to be a price.
I think so too. So I think he'll be double digits. Yeah,
he's one I would take a long look at. I would say that,
especially if he does float up a little bit. I think we got through a lot of the top contenders in here on a really, really big day of racing, and it's going to be fun. If you're in the area, head on out to the track. Come on out. Be a good time. I'll be running around all over the place, paddock, winner's circle, the tournament room, talking to some of the players in the tournament. Really looking forward to it. I do a lot of work, especially for me, 'cause right now I'm doing work for a couple different places. So it's a lot of times it's easier for me when I'm at home set up from my base, been able to do stuff, a couple different computers and screens. But it's fun on the big days to still be able to get out there and interact with everyone. And especially fingers crossed when it looks like the weather won't be a problem. Usually it's not in Southern California. And we'll have a good turnout. It's a good time of the year right now because these are all horses that will hopefully be running again, in the Breeders' Cup in not that long. So, Barry, buddy, California Crown Day. Really appreciate you jumping on early on Wednesday. So we didn't have the odds quite yet, but we had a good sense for most of these races, who's going to take money and some of the horses who are playable, who are bettable. Anything you want to mention, my friend, before we get out of here?
Nope. Fire away. Have a good time. Make some money. That's what we do.
Always remember shop.drf.com when you need past performances. They'll have clocker reports every day. So this will be a day where you could really use the clocker reports if you want to see how some of these big horses are coming into these races. And then one more thing to mention, that big betting championship, the California Crown Betting Championship, huge live money tournament. You can play at Santa Anita. You can play at ExpressBet. If you can't make it out there, also follow along with DRF because we have some free tickets we're giving away over the next few days, lots of general admission tickets. So if you follow along and you're getting involved in some of the contests, so all we'll have to do is put your name on a list and they'll put them on will call. You can walk on over, pick your tickets up. I know we can't make it, but I even want to sneak Barry Spears' name on that list and try to will it to happen. I just try to will that to happen one day, not in the too far future, hopefully. Thanks again, my friend. Appreciate all the help always. Good luck to all of you playing the races on a great Saturday of racing. If anyone has any questions, if anyone wants help just clarifying any of the thoughts about these races, I love when you comment on the YouTube, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube if you can. Throw a thumbs up if you like it. If you comment, it helps share it around. More people get a look at it. So always a big help to me. And Barry and I will be back next week. We got Keeneland next week.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we've got Keeneland opening up. Don't forget, there's really good racing at Belmont. There's a couple stakes races this week. Churchill has a couple stakes races too. It's another one of those great racing weekends with California, the spotlight for the California Crown.